Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. Forget skyscrapers, traffic jams, and Hollywood premieres for a moment. Tonight, we're stepping back exactly 100 years into a Los Angeles that would feel almost unrecognizable. No freeways, no glowing billboards, no celebrity mansions perched in the hills. Instead, dusty streets, orange groves stretching for miles, oil wells clattering like mechanical insects, and a small town trying to decide what it wanted to be when it grew up. But before we dive in, let me ask you, how's your day been so far? And where are you listening from tonight? It's always wild to me that we can connect across time and space like this. Me sitting here talking about old Los Angeles, you sitting there with headphones on, maybe in your car, maybe in bed, maybe just killing time between work and dinner. If today's been long, here's your chance to let it all go. Close your eyes, lean back, and let's time travel together. And if you're actually from Los Angeles, drop a comment and let us know. We'd love to hear from the locals, and if you're tuning in from another city, tell us which one. Maybe we'll dive into your hometown's history in a future video. All right, let's get to it. Picture this: Los Angeles in the early 1920s. At first glance, it doesn't even look like a city. The population is growing fast, just over 500,000 people, but it still feels like a frontier town. Horses and Model T cars share the same dirt roads. The sky is open, the air smells like citrus blossoms and hot dust, and everywhere you look, there's land waiting to be built on. People call it the City of Sunshine, and that sunshine is about to change everything. This is the Los Angeles your great-grandparents might have known, a place where farmers picked oranges at dawn, oil workers climbed wooden derricks before breakfast, and young dreamers with empty pockets wandered off trolleys, hoping to make it big in the movies. Most of them wouldn't, but a few, they would shape the way the entire world thought about fame, style, and storytelling. So let's step onto the dusty streets of Los Angeles around the year 1920. Imagine for a second that you've just woken up here. The first thing you notice? The quiet. There are no helicopters buzzing overhead, no roar of the 405 freeway, no endless traffic jam stretching to the horizon. Instead, mornings begin with roosters crowing, the creak of a wooden cartwheel, maybe the faint clang of a trolley bell in the distance. The city feels more like a town, stretched wide, but still intimate. Population? Roughly 500,000, which might sound like a lot, but compared to the 10 million plus who call LA home today, it's small enough that people actually recognize faces on the street. You pass by the same grocer every week. You probably know who runs the bakery, who sells the fruit, who drives the trolley line. Citrus groves line the outskirts, and on warm days, you can catch the sharp, sweet scent of orange blossoms drifting all the way into downtown. The air carries dust from dirt roads and the faint tang of oil from wooden derricks that rise like skeletal towers across the hills. LA in 1920 is both a farming town and an industrial experiment. Fields on one side, oil rigs on the other. Now picture yourself standing on Main Street. What do you see? The buildings are a mix of adobe leftovers from the Spanish and Mexican eras, wooden storefronts with hand-painted signs, and a few brick structures hinting at modernity. Sidewalks aren't always paved, and when it rains, yes, LA did get rain, mud runs down the gutters. Horses and early automobiles share the same streets, creating a strange soundtrack, the clop of hooves mixed with the sputter of engines. If you're a farmer, Your day starts before sunrise. You're out in the fields, hands raw from picking oranges or lettuce or grapes. Agriculture is king here, and Los Angeles is famous for exporting fruit across the country. Families depend on it. Packing houses line the railroads, where workers, often Mexican immigrants or local women, pack citrus into wooden crates stamped with colorful labels that would one day become collectibles. If you're an oil worker, mornings start differently. You wake to the sound of machinery, the smell of tar. Oil wells are scattered across the city. Beverly Hills, Long Beach, even right in residential neighborhoods, the rigs groan and creak, and men climb ladders slick with grease. It's dangerous, dirty work, but the pay is better than farming, and fortunes are being made for the lucky few who strike a good well. And then there's the trolley system. Back then, LA wasn't known for freeways. It was known for red cars. The Pacific Electric Railway stretched across miles, connecting neighborhoods and nearby towns. For a nickel, you could hop on a trolley and ride from downtown out to Santa Monica, Pasadena, or even Long Beach. Imagine the rattle of steel wheels on tracks, the hum of electricity overhead, the open windows, letting in fresh air as palm trees flashed past. It was cheap, reliable, and believe it or not, faster than driving a car today in rush hour traffic. Homes were modest. Most families lived in small wooden houses with porches, surrounded by a patch of garden or chickens scratching in the yard. Indoor plumbing wasn't guaranteed. Some neighborhoods still relied on outhouses. Electricity was spreading, but it wasn't universal. At night, the glow of oil lamps mixed with the newer shine of light bulbs, creating a patchwork of old and new. And what about entertainment? No Netflix, no TikTok, but plenty of ways to stay busy. People went to vaudeville shows, listened to traveling musicians, and of course the movies. Silent films were the hot new thing, and local theaters filled up with people eager to watch Charlie Chaplin stumble or Mary Pickford smile. Imagine sitting in a dark room, piano music playing live in the corner, the screen flickering as black and white characters acted out stories without saying a word. For many, it was pure magic. Los Angeles, even then, was a city of contrasts. Some neighborhoods thrived. Wealthy families built Spanish Revival mansions in new suburbs like Hancock Park, while others struggled. Immigrant communities, especially Mexican and Chinese families, often lived in crowded conditions, working long hours for low wages. Racial discrimination was real, and segregation shaped where people could live or what jobs they could get. At the same time, though, those same communities gave LA its unique culture. Street markets buzzed with Spanish and English mingling together. Tamale wagons rolled through neighborhoods at night, selling hot food to tired workers. Chinatown offered herbal medicines and imported goods. Mexican fiestas filled plazas with music, color, and dance. The blending of traditions made the city vibrant. Even if life was tough, there was a sense of possibility hanging in the air. People came here because they believed Los Angeles offered something different. Better weather, better health, a fresh start. In the Midwest and East Coast, winters were brutal, jobs were scarce, and cities were crowded. But LA had sunshine, open land, and the promise of something new. Advertisements in newspapers painted it as paradise, and so people arrived. By train, by car, sometimes with nothing more than a suitcase and a stubborn dream. Some came chasing health. Doctors recommended the California climate for tuberculosis patients, and many families uprooted their lives in hopes that the dry air would save them. Others came chasing fortune. Land speculators, oil prospectors, and yes, future Hollywood actors. The city became a melting pot of hope, ambition, and risk. And little by little, this sleepy farming town began to transform. Farmland turned into neighborhoods. Trolley lines stretched farther and farther. Small businesses popped up on every corner. Barbershops, bakeries, diners serving pie and coffee for a nickel. Downtown grew taller, with new buildings, banks, and hotels. The Pueblo roots were still there, but they were being layered over with something bigger. So let's rewind the reel. Literally, because if Los Angeles, 100 years ago, was still half farmland and half oil town, it was also something else entirely. The world's most unlikely movie capital. Picture the scene. It's 1915. You're walking past a field of cabbages when you notice a group of people hammering together wooden sets. They're building false walls, painting fake windows, and dragging canvas backdrops into place. A hand-cranked camera sits on a tripod. Someone shouts, "Quiet on set," though, ironically, the films are silent. Then a man with a bowler hat slips on a banana peel. A pianist nearby provides the only soundtrack, and suddenly, you're watching the birth of a global industry. Why Los Angeles? A few reasons. Sunshine was number one. Cameras in the 1910s needed natural light to expose film properly, and California offered 300 plus days of it every year. Land was another reason. Here, acres were cheap compared to New York or Chicago, and you could build entire backlots without breaking the bank. And maybe most important, distance. Movie companies came west to escape the strict patent rules of Thomas Edison's film monopoly. Out here, in a dusty corner of the country, they could experiment without lawyers breathing down their necks. And experiment they did. Within a decade, Los Angeles went from farm plots to film sets. Hollywood, which had been nothing more than a quiet suburb with avocado orchards, suddenly exploded into the beating heart of the industry. Studios like Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Universal planted roots. Stars were born. Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Gloria Swanson. Their faces flickered across screens, not just in Los Angeles, but around the world. Imagine being a local at the time. One week, you're passing a cow pasture. The next week, there's a medieval castle, built out of plaster, sitting right in the middle of it. Carpentry shops turned into prop houses. Tailors became costume designers. Bakers rented their storefronts to film crews shooting chase scenes. The entire city started doubling as a stage. But don't be fooled. Hollywood glamour wasn't instant. The early days of film were messy, low budget, and often dangerous. Stuntmen threw themselves off buildings with no safety nets. Car chases tore down unpaved roads, with nothing more than luck keeping actors alive. Directors yelled through megaphones, while extras stood sweating under the California sun for hours. Yet the magic of it, the idea that moving pictures could tell stories, was so powerful that people didn't mind the chaos. For audiences, it was pure escapism. Remember, this was right after World War I. The world had seen horror, loss, and upheaval. Silent films offered something else. Laughter, romance, fantasy, and Los Angeles became the workshop for that dream factory. By the 1920s, the star system was in full swing. Studios marketed actors like gods and goddesses. Fan magazines printed glossy photos, gossip columns, and fashion spreads. Ordinary people lined up at theaters, not just for the films, but for the chance to glimpse a lifestyle they could never imagine otherwise. Movie stars became role models, trendsetters, even objects of worship. And yet, while Hollywood projected luxury, most of the people working behind the camera still lived ordinary lives. Carpenters went home to modest bungalows. Makeup artists shared boarding houses. Extras earned a few dollars a day and hoped maybe, someday, a director would notice them. It was a city of dreamers, and for every star that rose, thousands stayed in the shadows. Still, the industry transformed Los Angeles almost overnight. Hotels filled with out-of-towners hoping to make it. Theaters popped up downtown, some seating thousands, with golden interiors that rivaled European opera houses. Street vendors sold glossy postcards of movie stars, and slowly, the identity of Los Angeles began to shift. It wasn't just farmland and oil rigs anymore. It was the place where dreams were filmed, edited, and projected for the world. And here's the wild part. Most locals didn't realize just how big it would become. To them, it was just another hustle. In a city full of hustles, oil might dry up, farms might fail. But Hollywood? At first it felt temporary. Nobody could have predicted that a century later, the word Hollywood would symbolize global fame itself. So by now, we've seen Los Angeles as a dusty farm town and as a chaotic movie set. But there's another layer to this story. The transformation of the city itself. Because between 1920 and 1930, Los Angeles wasn't just growing, it was exploding. Let's start with the population. In 1900, fewer than 200,000 people lived here. By 1930, that number had shot past 1.2 million. Imagine that. More than 1 million new residents in just 30 years. Every day, trains pulled into Union Station, carrying families from Chicago, Kansas, New York, even tiny farming towns you've never heard of. They stepped off with suitcases, sun hats, and wide eyes, looking around at a city that promised two things: sunshine and opportunity. And opportunity came in strange forms. Oil, for example. If you think Beverly Hills has always been about palm trees and shopping, think again. In the 1920s, it was dotted with oil derricks, huge wooden skeletons pumping black gold straight out of the ground. The city quickly became one of the top oil producers in the world. It wasn't pretty. Imagine the smell of tar mixed with orange blossoms. But it meant jobs, money, and investors flooding in. At the same time, land developers were hard at work. They carved up old ranches and farmland into neat neighborhoods. Spanish Revival houses with red tile roofs popped up everywhere. Arched doorways, stucco walls, palm trees planted like movie props. These houses weren't just shelter, they were selling a lifestyle. Imagine the ads. Live like a king under the California sun. And people bought into it. A small bungalow here became a dream for middle-class families. But if you really want to understand how Los Angeles changed, you have to look at transportation. Today, the city is famous for its endless freeways. But back then, it was all about the red cars. The Pacific Electric Railway stretched more than 1,000 miles. Yes, you heard that right, making it the largest electric railway system in the world. For a nickel, you could ride from downtown all the way to Santa Monica, Pasadena, Long Beach, or even Orange County. The red cars weren't just transportation, they were freedom. Imagine teenagers sneaking onto a trolley with a few coins, riding to the beach, and feeling like the world had opened up. But here's the twist. As cars became cheaper, thanks to Henry Ford's assembly line, people started buying Model Ts instead, and slowly, Los Angeles began shifting from a city built on rails to a city built for cars. Roads expanded, gas stations popped up, traffic lights were installed, and so began the culture that still defines LA today. The car culture, wide streets, long drives, and eventually, the freeway system that would sprawl like concrete vines across the basin. Meanwhile, downtown was booming. Skyscrapers, well, early versions of them, started climbing upward. Banks, theaters, hotels, department stores. Broadway Street became one of the busiest theater districts in the country. Picture neon lights buzzing, marquees flashing film titles, crowds spilling out after a Chaplin comedy. LA wasn't just catching up to other cities. It was creating its own identity. And it wasn't just architecture or transportation. It was culture. This was a city made of layers. Mexican heritage at its roots, Native American history in its soil, Anglo-American newcomers shaping laws and business, immigrants from Japan, China, Italy, and Russia, carving out neighborhoods. Each brought their own traditions, foods, and languages. Tamale vendors set up at night. Chinatown bustled with herbal shops. Italian bakers opened corner stores. The city's diversity gave it flavor, literally. Of course, not everything was golden. Segregation and racism shaped where people could live and work. Many communities were redlined, barred from owning property in certain neighborhoods. Social clubs and schools often excluded anyone who wasn't white. So, while Los Angeles was marketed as a paradise, for many, it was a paradise with limits. Still, the dream pulled people in. There was something magnetic about Los Angeles. This sense that you could arrive with nothing, and with luck, remake yourself. That energy charged the city's growth. One day, you're in a farming town. The next, you're in a metropolis where the oil boom, Hollywood glitz, and suburban expansion all collide. By the late 1920s, Los Angeles had completely reinvented itself. What was once a sleepy pueblo now looked like the prototype of the modern American city. Sprawling, diverse, ambitious, and a little chaotic. The orange groves were shrinking, the oil wells kept pumping, and the movie cameras never stopped rolling. And here's the fascinating part. The city was aware of its transformation. Local newspapers wrote about the new Los Angeles, praising its growth, its opportunities, its culture. Ads showed glamorous women in cars, cruising palm-lined boulevards. Developers bragged about subdivisions with the latest in modern conveniences. Running water, electricity, maybe even a garage for your car. So if you zoom out, you can see 3 Los Angeleses existing at once in the 1920s. The first is the Old Town. Farmers, ranchers, and communities tied to the land. The second is the Industrial City. Oil wells, trolleys, factories. And the third is the Dream City. Hollywood, suburbs, modern living. Together, they overlapped, clashed, and shaped the city we know today. And that's what makes Los Angeles so fascinating. It didn't just grow. It transformed, almost like a film reel, flipping from one scene to the next. In just a couple of decades, it went from a quiet pueblo to a sprawling experiment in urban living, fueled by oil, movies, and hope. So here we are. We've walked through the dusty streets, smelled the orange blossoms, heard the clatter of oil rigs, and peeked behind the curtains of early Hollywood. But the story of Los Angeles 100 years ago isn't just about what it looked like. It's about what it was becoming. Think about this. In the span of a single lifetime, Los Angeles transformed more than many cities do in centuries, from a quiet pueblo with fewer than 200,000 residents to a booming metropolis of over 1 million, from orange groves to oil wells, from wooden trolleys to traffic jams, from adobe walls to glittering movie palaces. The DNA of modern Los Angeles was written in those decades. And what made it possible? 2 things, really. Land and light. The land gave farmers a living, oil men their fortunes, and developers their playground. The light, those endless days of sunshine, gave Hollywood the perfect stage, and migrants the hope of better health and brighter days. Together, they turned a corner of California into a global symbol. But here's the thing about symbols. They're complicated. For every story of success, there were stories of struggle. The Mexican communities, who had called this land home for generations, found themselves pushed to the margins as new neighborhoods rose. Chinese immigrants faced discrimination and limits on where they could live or own property. African American families moving from the South discovered that opportunity was real. But so were barriers. Los Angeles was a city of dreams, but not everyone's dream was treated equally. And yet, those communities left their mark. The music, the food, the traditions, they all layered into the culture. Walk down a street in old LA, and you might hear Spanish, English, Italian, Cantonese, all mixing together in markets and plazas. That blend gave Los Angeles its unique rhythm, something no amount of segregation laws could erase. Meanwhile, Hollywood kept growing. By the 1930s, the silent film era gave way to talkies, and the city cemented itself as the capital of global entertainment. The oil kept flowing, though by mid-century, the derricks would start vanishing behind carefully planted palm trees. The red cars ran for a while longer, until cars took over completely, reshaping the city into the freeway jungle we know today. Looking back, it's tempting to romanticize the Los Angeles of 100 years ago. The slower pace, the open land, the sense of new beginnings. But let's be honest, it wasn't easy. Life was tough. Work was hard. Inequality was everywhere. The streets weren't glamorous. They were dusty, muddy, sometimes dangerous. And yet, that's exactly what makes the story inspiring. Because out of all that mess, out of sweat, grit, and stubborn hope, emerged a city that shaped not only California, but the entire world. So what can we take from this story today? Maybe it's this. Cities are never finished. They're living things, constantly reinventing themselves. A century ago, Los Angeles was figuring out who it wanted to be, and in a way it still is. Every generation adds its own layer, sometimes beautiful, sometimes flawed, but always part of the bigger picture. Now, I want to bring this back to you, the listener, the viewer. If you're from Los Angeles, think about the ground under your feet. Somewhere beneath the freeways and skyscrapers lie the roots of citrus groves, oil wells, and silent film sets. The past isn't gone. It's just hidden under the present. And if you're watching from somewhere else, tell us where, because every city has its own story like this. Maybe not Hollywood, maybe not oil fields, but each place has a past that shaped its present. Drop a comment with your city's name, and who knows, Maybe we'll explore your hometown next. So tonight, as you take off your headphones or close the video, imagine Los Angeles not as the city you know today, but as it was a century ago. A place of dust and light, sweat and dreams. Picture the farmer in his grove, the oil worker on his rig, the young actress hoping to be noticed by a director. Picture the trolley rattling down the tracks, the skyline just beginning to climb, the glow of a theater marquee on Broadway. That was Los Angeles, 100 years ago, a city still learning to dream, and in the process, teaching the rest of the world how to dream too.